Hey, thanks for tuning into my podcast. This is Big Head on the Block, hosted by me, Tim Henderson, aka Big Head. This is Big Head, and we're back on the block. Today we're talking to retired Baton Rouge City Police Captain Frankie Caruso. Welcome, Frankie.
Appreciate being on.
So, Frankie, let's talk a little bit about what this podcast is going to involve. And basically, you're going to give us some insight on what it was when you had an undercover operation many years ago, back when Baton Rouge City Police used to actually put people in deep cover, correct?
That's right.
And to your knowledge, we haven't done that in years, right?
Many years, yeah. I don't know why they got away from it, but it was a system back then, how it had to happen when you went narcotics.
Okay. So let's give people a little background. Other than uniform patrol, can you tell us what you did, some of the major divisions and some of the major assignments that you had?
Yeah, I actually started my career as a reserve officer. I owned a grocery store that my family left to me, and I was trying to be a police officer back when my dad died. I ended up at that store. So during that time, I became a reserve officer to see if it's something I really wanted to do or not. And I worked as a reserve officer for about a year and a half. Then I joined the police department in July of '83. When I came out of the academy, went to 2nd District, which is Highland Road Precinct. I was there for about a year and 8 months. And then I transferred to Narcotics Division undercover.
Okay. So you got to come out of patrol relatively quick, man. That's a hell of an assignment that you got.
Well, I think now, I don't know how they, of course, today they don't even have undercover, but later on, they required you to have 3 years in patrol before you go to a specialized division, which I understood that. But the reason they did it early back then, and I know, Herbert and Annie came in our division straight from the academy. They didn't even go to patrol. The reason why we did that they would get you quick when you didn't want you in uniform too long, because you'd be known as a police officer. They're trying to get somebody that's not really seen and known. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
that makes it a lot easier. So you rose through the ranks. You made sergeant, you made lieutenant, and you made captain. You were in the narcotics division. And when I knew you, you were also involved in the intelligence division. Give us a little insight on what your positions were in narcotics and in intelligence.
Okay, well, I went in narcotics strict undercover. I stayed strict undercover for almost 2 years. And then I went, I guess you call it low profile. You move up to where you're still in narcotics, plain clothes, but you do search warrants, and, you're known as a police officer, as a detective. You're not strict undercover, which they don't even have no more, like we said. But I stayed in narcotics for a little over 10 and a half years. And I got transferred to 2nd District again, Highland Road. And then I was out Highland Road for about close to 3 years, 2 years and 10 months. And I got transferred to Intelligence Division from April of 2010 to my retirement date in July of 2015.
Okay. So now that we know your background, and look, I've known Frankie my whole career because he was already involved in the police department, and you kind of know the people that are the movers and shakers. As a young cop, you pay attention to the people that you think are doing a good job in the police world, people that you can either look up to or people that you can, get some experience and wisdom from. And, although Frankie and I never actually had any kind of personal interaction with each other, I did kind of pay attention to him and some of the things he did, as well as many other officers, as you've heard in my podcast. And Frankie probably doesn't even know this because we never talked about it. But Frankie, I want to tell you that a lot of things you did in your career, I did kind of keep track of it, because cops, we kind of like that anyway.
Right.
We keep up with the movers and the shakers, like I said. But the story that we fixing to talk about is one when you were deep cover. And to my listeners, I haven't heard this story, and I like to hear these stories raw. I kind of know about, the situation, but I don't know any of the details. So everything you hear, I'm going to be hearing for the first time. And that's the way I prefer it when I do these podcasts. So take us back. You don't have to tell us the year unless you want to. Take us back to the time that this particular incident occurred, the one we're going to talk about. And if I remember correctly, you said that you were in Hammond at the time?
Yeah, what happened was Chief Virgilio was the chief at the time. And like I said, I was strict undercover. And, they're always looking for people that's not known because they can't use police officers in their own department because everybody's known. They can't go out there on the street and work because everybody knows them. So they different departments would borrow cops from different departments. Like I worked in Zachary before for Zachary PD. I worked different places like that. And this particular time, Roddy Duvall was the chief in Hammond. Him and Virgilio, I guess, were friends. And so they were, I guess you could say, borrowing me. They were supposed to do a swap. They had somebody here and locally in town that a department that needed some work. They thought they had some narcotics dealing. So they were going to send an officer from Hammond PD down here, and I was going to go down there to work their streets. And that's how we end up doing that. And it ended up the guy that was supposed to come down here backed out. I'm going to tell you, Tim, when you're working undercover, it can be some serious stuff. I mean, it's dangerous. It can be dangerous. And a lot of officers, a lot of people, they don't want to do that. It's kind of risky. So I think this guy, I think he just got cold feet and didn't want to do it, a little leery.
And let me cut you off right there and tell you this. I understand because I made a decision early on in my career that I wouldn't do it because I've seen some of the bigger cases that people know nationally. Billy Queen with the Mongols, Joe Pistone, who went undercover as Donnie Brasco with the Mafia. I forget the guy from the Hells Angels who went undercover and got patched in. But the one consistent thing that I found whenever, I was never offered the opportunity, but I would have turned it down. I guess I would have declined. But the one thing that I found is that these people seem to have a lot of disdain for things that occurred during the undercover process, the way things were handled with the department. Their lives, almost in all of them, seem to be wrecked in some capacity as far as their family life and then their ability to transition back. Now, a lot of these were many, many year undercover operations, which may be a little bit different. But, I just thought that, and look, I'm not a scary dude, man. I'm an out front guy. Bad guys are bullets.
I know that.
And bad guys are bullets. I don't mean nothing to me, man, but I just didn't think that it would ever be a good fit for me unless I did it in another state, but it would have had to be short term. But anyway, so you were lent to Hammond PD because of a drug issue. So kind of give us an idea of, what you did. How did you prepare for this? How did you go? Did you live in Hammond? Just kind of give us some details.
Well, what happened was they got me an apartment. I actually moved there, and I had an apartment there, not far from the college. And there was a specific area that they were really wanted me to work. Was they how they nickname all these areas on the street? This was called the Third World. It's basically the ghetto, whatever you want to call it, the hood. And it's kind of like in Baton Rouge, we have all the CC Lockdown and the Bottoms and all the different names for different areas.
Right.
They have so forth. Well, this was called the Third World. And it's street dealing, street crack and stuff like that. And so they gave me an apartment, and I had at the time, the Mustangs were popular. I had the 5.0 Mustang. So I was assigned to live down there basically and just go out. Now, that's something, too, I got to touch on. Today and later times, years later, they would never do this. But I was by myself. I had no partner. I had no, I didn't have a police radio, nothing, it was just me.
Okay.
And I'm out there basically just on my own,
Yeah. So whenever we see these shows on TV and they recount everything, they have people that are basically handlers or they monitor stuff. So you saying you were on an island, they just stuck you out there and they said, hey man, you be a drug dealer, you be a gangster, you be whatever. And let us know how it turns out.
Well, back then, and this was like in the late 80s, say. And, when you went, of course, back then was different than now, too. Back then, police officers, of course, were clean shaven and, you didn't have tattoos and all that stuff, And so when you went narcotics, you always grew your hair long, grew your beard, because that's how it was back then. That's what, you were hanging out on the street and stuff. So, of course, I had real long hair and all that stuff, and you dressed the part, basically, And
look, I don't remember. I think I might have seen a picture or two of you back in the day, but I'll just tell people like this: if you see Frankie's like a chameleon. He can look good in a police uniform, shaved and everything, but he can look like a street person. He can look like a drug dealer. He can look like, somebody that does nefarious things. So I will say, you have an appearance that can fit the part of pretty much any role, and I'm sure that helped you out a lot.
Oh yeah, it did. It definitely did. Plus, I mean, it's all, it's all in how you're acting. Basically, is all you're doing. You're acting, and you just gotta put your mind and your body. You gotta think like you gotta forget being a cop. You gotta be out there with the same mindset and lifestyle, I guess you could say. But anyway, they put me in this apartment, so they gave me money. The only two people knew I was there, and that's the way it should be when you're working undercover. You don't want nobody to know because people talk, and so I had their head of detectives. I think his name was Steve Rackey. He was the one I reported to. He's the only guy I dealt with, and then the chief knew. That was it. That was it. Nobody else knew I was there.
Yeah, and you made a good point, Frankie, because even cops wouldn't have no reason or no ill intent to try and put out, but we do talk. We talk, and and somebody would say, "Hey man, I hear Frankie's in Hammond." Well, you never know who the cops may mention this in front of. They may have a family member. So yeah, it made sense to keep it exclusive, man. Two people is a whole lot.
Yeah, and when I was in narcotics, I'm gonna tell you, when I went in narcotics and I went undercover, I mean, this is how deep I try to do it. I just became on the department for a short time, so I actually told my family, my relatives, they all thought I quit the police department because I grew my hair long and all that. They said, "What you doing looking like that? You're not a cop, So I told everybody. Everybody thought I quit the department, and I said I had a job at the paint contractors in the plants.
You had an apartment in Hammond. Two people know you're there, and your mission is to infiltrate drug operations, or what?
Yeah, that's right. Just anything and anywhere I wanted to go. I went to bars. I went to the third world out there, the ghetto. I rode the streets in the high crime areas. Went out at night, just try to meet people and see what's going on in town, And I started making buys, and I made a lot of buys. And what I would do is I'd go back to my apartment, and I had the paperwork there. I'd write it up, tag the stuff. I'd contact that one guy that knew I was there. He'd come by the apartment, or I'd meet him somewhere, inconspicuous, and I'd give him the evidence and give him the reports I wrote, and they just kept it, and they kept a log. So at the end of this little deal, they would get the top agents to go make arrest warrants and arrest everybody.
Gotcha. So when you're making when you infiltrating Third World and some of the other areas that are more nefarious in Hammond, you have to portray yourself as a street guy. Did you have any specific job title? Did they, like Donnie Brasco was a jeweler, they call him Donnie the Jeweler. Did you have any kind of lifestyle that you were portraying, that you were involved in?
No, I always went by, I was a painter and I worked for a paint contracting company. That's all I said. To see, the least you say, the better, because you don't want to get yourself caught up in what you said to somebody and somebody different, So I just kept that as least as possible.
Yeah, you keep it simple so you don't mess up, because I'm sure some of these situations get pretty intense at times, especially, a lot of people, I've dealt with people on the streets, for my whole career, but a lot of people don't understand, and I don't really have a total grasp on it because I never was undercover or deep cover. I was in plain clothes, and I actually, I was doing some surveillance in an area, just before I retired. I was in intelligence, and of all things, man, these people ratted me out because they thought I was a hitman coming over there to kill somebody, and the police actually stopped me on the interstate, and it was funny because then they recognized who I was. But I went back to the apartment complex. I said, "Man, which one of y'all ratted me out?" And the dude said, "Man, we thought you was about to kill somebody." And I said, "So y'all ratting me out?" Now we're talking about drug dealers, gang members, and everything. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been when I was undercover, I was stopped. And I had undercover driver's license and everything. I mean, it was like strict undercover.
Yeah.
I went by a different name the whole bit. So I actually got stopped when I was in Hammond by the police for speeding, and I just gave them my undercover license and got a ticket, and I couldn't tell them I was the police or nothing.
Right. So whenever you before we get directly into the topic, when you are maneuvering, well, first of all, two things. Were you married at the time?
Oh yeah, I was married with 3 kids.
Married with 3 kids. That had to be, pretty hard on the family, huh?
Oh yeah. It'd be a little conflict, because I would come home like sometime on the weekend or a couple of days during the week or something. But I basically was living there,
Yeah. And then the next question is, about how long were you actually on this particular mission?
Well, I was probably maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe 5. I'm not sure.
Man, that's a long time to be away.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So let's you in the third world, you in an apartment, you undercover, you a street guy, you a painter. That's what you portraying yourself as. So tell us how you got involved with the people that this story centers around.
Well, what happens is, hanging out. They had a couple of convenience stores down there. People hung around, So I just hang around there, and how you meet people. People hanging around. You say, hey man, what's up? You start talking to somebody, and I'm pretty personable, and I can pretty much talk to anybody, and I'm a pretty good bullshitter. So I would just bullshit with people, and before you know it, I had a couple guys that were kind of like I would say friends, And there was this one particular guy. And this was a black area, and I'm white, so you got to be careful, what you say, how you say it, and what you're doing, and what your reason there, and everything else, because they do inquire, they're suspicious,
Right.
So, like I said, though, I'm a pretty good actor and bullshitter, so I basically made one particular. I can't remember his name, to be honest with you, but this one guy, we started hanging out. I mean, we started going out together, hanging out. I'd pick him up, we'd ride, and in the area, they got to know me. That whole area got to know me because they see this Mustang all the time buying drugs on the street, And this guy that I've met, he started hooking me up with different people. So I'd meet people. So that's how I was starting to, just like anything, it's like when you get informants,
Yeah.
He was like a unknown informant. He didn't know he was an informant, but he was actually being an informant without knowing he was one,
Yeah, he's bringing you to every spot that you need to get to, and unbeknownst to him, and y'all were friends. I'm sure y'all were like cool, right?
Yeah, and once you get that in their groove, once you get in their pocket where they feel like you one of the boys, or you're cool, I guess is the word, and man, they start, and then it's wide open then,
Yeah.
So I could pull down through a certain street in that area. They'd be like, hey, man, light them up. They want me to, I had a 5-speed, they want me to smoke the tires or something,
Yeah.
It was just like anybody's partner,
Right. So you became known, you became accepted. That's the most important thing. You became accepted on the streets, and now you can free flow and pretty much, they'll probably tell you anything, right?
That's close to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It hooked me up.
So when the situation where it almost turned deadly, kind of lead us into that story.
Well, what happened was there's a certain apartment complex there in the third world, and I pulled up, and this guy flagged me down, black guy, and he said, "Hey, what you looking for?" And I told him I was looking for a rock, and so he sold me a rock, a crack rock. And he said, "Man, I'm Vamp, bro. If you never need anything else, He had no front teeth in the front, so they called him Vampire, Vamp. So, because he had these fangs, So anyway, I bought from him, Another day, I come by, he's out there again, so I bought from him, Well, then I came by one day, and he wasn't right out front. So I pulled into the complex, and I went down to the back of the complex, and somebody else flagged me. So I bought from somebody else. So when I was coming out of the complex, Vamp's out there. And so he flags me down, and he looks like he's a little irritated. So I rode down I'm in the driver's seat. He's on the passenger side. I rode down the window. He reached in through the window saying, "Hey, He said, hey, motherfucker, why you went back there and bought from the mothers? You supposed to buy from me. I said, man, ain't no big deal, So now he opens the door, sits in my passenger seat. So he's kind of irritated. So I'm thinking, now I'm wearing cut-off pants, a tank top, tennis shoes, right?
Right.
And I don't have no gun on me. My person is under the seat. So it's summertime. It's hot, So anyway, he starts, getting kind of cocky, and he wants to know why I went and bought from the mother guys in the back. So I told him, I said, look, I'm going to come back, but you wasn't out here. No big deal, So out of nowhere, he pulls his gun out, and he points it at me, and he says, give me your wallet. I'm like, hey, man, chill out, So he keeps on cussing, saying, give me your wallet, give me your fucking wallet, give me your wallet. So I'm reaching in my pocket. Now you got to realize my wallet's all undercover too, And there's a little flap in my wallet, and behind the flap I have, several $100s, but in the front part I got like $40. So I'm reaching my wallet. I had a gold chain on my neck, like a Catholic chain, metal.
Right.
And he grabbed it and popped it off my neck. And then I'm reaching my wallet. He says, keeps hollering. He's all pumped up. He said, give me your wallet, give me your wallet. He keeps saying it, So I opened my wallet. I said, just take my cash, man. Don't take my wallet. I got my license and all. So as I'm doing that, I give him the cash. He sees my watch on my arm. He says, give me your watch, give me your watch. So I'm taking off my watch, and I guess I'm being too slow. He takes the gun, he puts it in my mouth, and he says, you motherfucker, I'll blow your fucking brains out. And I dropped the watch when he did that. And I put my hands up and said, hey, man, just chill out. Just chill, bro. No big deal. Just to chill. So I guess he had enough of what he got. He started backing out the car. So,
but before you move too far past that, let's stop right there. Let me go back and ask you something. So to the listeners, I've never been in this situation, but I've been in the police world. These type of experiences, when you're not undercover, are extremely intense. But now you got an undercover agent who's being tormented, harassed, threatened, and then has a gun put in his mouth. So, Frankie, I know you telling us the story calm because it happened many years ago, but tell us, because you can be aggressive, you can be assertive. You're a fighter. You one of them guys that ain't gonna put up with a lot, but now you playing a role, and now somebody got the upper hand on you. So, well, tell us about the intensity in that car. I know you. I'm gonna tell
you, you cannot control your body when something like that's happening. It felt like he could see my heart beating through my shirt. That's how it felt. Because the adrenaline rush was so strong, it felt like my heart was going to come out of my chest.
Yeah, that's powerful, man.
But I got to say, at the same time, I didn't feel like I was scared. My mind was racing. And this is amazing. I'm going to tell you this, and I try to tell people this before. Your mind is amazing, because my mind is going 1,000 times a minute thinking what to do next, And as I'm watching him, and I'll tell you this in a little bit, but anyway, I actually pictured in my mind me reaching under the seat and pulling out my gun and getting to a gunfight. I imagined, I saw a funeral procession in my mind. I saw him backing away from the car and shooting at my car as I pulled away. My mind saw all these things in a snap, just like that, quick. Right. That's how your mind can work. I saw all these things in my mind. I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I just pull up, stop, get my gun, come out shooting? Do I just pull away hopefully he don't shoot at me? Because I'm all undercover. These guys can get them later, And by the way, I already had this guy's picture, real name, and everything, because I'd already bought from him. So right. the guys that's doing the follow-up, that I'm there with, working for, they had already gave me his picture and everything. And I said, yeah, that's him. We verified him already, identified him. So we already knew who he was. So anyway, I saw all these scenarios in my mind, and my heart feels like it's coming out of my chest. And I saw my kids, I saw everything, just a flash, So I pulled away very slowly and just kind of pulled off. And then I went back to my apartment and called the one guy that knew I was there, the chief of detectives,
Right.
Told him what happened, So,
okay, so he gets out the car. He's still running his mouth. You going through all these scenarios in your mind. And the one thing I could tell you as a police officer, and you know this, and every other cop that's been in hectic situations, you have to I always say, ABC, always be cool. You got to remain calm, even under duress, because if not, you're going to make bad decisions, right, Frankie?
That's right. Exactly right.
And you got to go ahead.
That's why I was telling you all these things going in my mind. I'm thinking so much, and I didn't realize, I never realized in my life that so much, you can see so much so quick, in your mind. And that's what I was doing right there. I'm trying to keep calm, but I'm trying to decide what's my next move, Yeah,
and you're in a volatile situation, man. And your next move could be your last move, and and that's why I wanted us to get this story out there, because not a lot of people realize that you are risking your life to help someone else in another area, not even with BRPD, not in this community, but another community. Right. You risking your life every moment that you undercover, because the streets, the streets have a way of managing themselves however they want. So if for some reason they think you dirty, if they think you a cop, if they think you ain't cool, if they get mad at you just like they did, hey, then you're a victim.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and that's that's a lot of the reason. I guess probably they don't do it so much anymore on a local level. Because it's just something where there's a lot of danger involved, and I don't know, risk versus reward. So you were able to drive off. He didn't shoot. He didn't do anything. Did you ever buy from him again?
No. Well, he got arrested. I went back to the apartment and I talked to the guy. So anyway, the chief detective's guy, he come, and of course I told him everything that happened, how it happened, all. And I'd only been there for a short time now. I just, I was only there for a few weeks when this happened, right? So they didn't want to blow my cover. So they didn't want they didn't want to cease the operation we were doing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what they did is they drew up an arrest warrant for armed robbery under my undercover name. And so they went that night. That was during the day. They went that night and they found him at his girlfriend's apartment. They went over there, and when they went in, he jumped out the window naked and ran, is what they told me. And they chased him down, and they caught him, and they arrested him. Now, he was arrested just for the armed robbery charge right now, not for the dope charges that I had on, because if they did that, it was going to burn me.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're trying to still keep me cool. The whole idea when you're undercover is to stay cool as possible, as long as possible.
Right.
In any situation. So what they did is they went and they arrested him for the robbery and had him locked up. And so I continue. Now you got to. This is what's kind of funny is it made me even cooler. Now I was the white boy that Vamp robbed, and all of them talking about how, man, that's fucked up, that's wrong. They, man, that's messed up how Vamp did you, bruh, and all that stuff. So now I didn't know how I was going to be taken when I was going back later to ride through, but it actually made me cooler. They all were like even more my friend, because they felt like it was messed up that he did that to me.
Yeah, the streets, they do a lot of odd stuff, but I will say this: the streets got a certain code, and
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see everything you're saying. I can picture, because I was in this world, right? I can picture them saying, "Yeah, that's fucked up, man. Vamp did this." So now you got an additional, because you were per se the victim. You getting some love from the streets because they thought it was dirty, and even
that's
though they,
right.
even though they do dirty shit their own self, they know what's right and what's wrong.
There's certain things that they don't tolerate, on the street. They're like, man, that's wrong, man. This dude's buying dope. He can buy who he wants to buy from. That they just felt like he was out of place for what he did.
Yeah.
So
that enhanced your reputation out there. So
exactly
the task goes forward. You're still undercover, so you probably stay undercover another couple of months at least.
Yep.
All right.
And I made all these cases on all these dope buys, and then what happened was when they decided to call the operation, they said they had enough warrants, because I drew up all these arrest warrants and all these buys I was making. So, as I'd buy them, it was a little system, I'd buy the dope, meet the guy, turn it over, then draw arrest warrant. He'd get pictures, make sure I had the right person, so on and so forth. It was a system, but when it was all said and done, we had all these arrest warrants, and I still didn't come out. And the only time I came out is when it was time to put the dope charges on Vamp. I asked them, could I go personally do that? Because I had this little thing I wanted, I just wanted him to see my face, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I know what you mean. They pulled him out. I know what you mean.
It felt good, They brought me up to the prison up there in Tangipahoa where he was, and they pulled him in a little sitting room, and when they had him in there, I got to go in there, and he was sitting there, and he looked at me, and I pulled my wallet out, and I said, "Still want my wallet, motherfucker?"
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of put in his face, and then he started back, "Oh, man, I didn't mean that, man, bro, man, I didn't mean nothing," all that crap, So I'm like, "Yeah, guess what, brother?" I said, "You screwed up." I said, "First off, you sold dope to a policeman." I said, "Then you want to rob the policeman. You stole police money. It wasn't my money. It was undercover. It was the cop money." I said, and I said, "So your ass is going." I think they when finally went to court. I think he got 40-something years.
Yeah, he needed 40-something years, man. And I'm not asking you what happened in there, but I'll tell you this: I know Frankie, and I know me, and I know a lot of other cops, and I can tell you this. Beating this motherfucker's ass for doing that would have probably been your number one.
I'd have told him drop all the charges. Everybody leave that room. Just let me and him stay there for about 10 minutes. That's all. I'd have been happy. That's all we needed. That's how I felt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And people that aren't cops, they don't really understand this. But man, when you're dealing with some of these people and it gets that intense to the point where this motherfucker is literally trying to potentially kill you. Okay, think about this, listeners. He got a gun in his mouth. He's having to figure out a way not to get killed. And then this guy, which a lot of them do, there's some hard criminals out there. But Frankie knows as much as good as me, and maybe even better because he was in narcotics. These people that are big and bad and Billy Badass on the street, you get them in a room by themselves. You get them.
Nothing.
Yeah, they're nothing. They cry, they whimper, they beg for forgiveness. Oh man, I didn't mean this, I didn't mean that. Too late, man. You thought it was okay to do it, and now the repercussions are here. Don't start crying now. Don't try to act like it wasn't nothing, because these situations are too intense, and they're nothing. Like you said, that's the easiest way to put it. There are some hard ones out there. Now, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But
there's some out there that they follow up. They're bad, but a lot of the loud talkers, most of the loud talkers, the big mouth ones. We used to transport them off the street. They're talking crap in front of all the boys. Then when you get them in the building, they change the whole demeanor. They're all apologetic and courtesy. I'm like, man, too late for all that crap now, man.
Yeah, and look, that happens more than it don't. Let me just put it that way, and I think you'll agree with me. When we're talking about people that are real, I read a book years ago. It was on the Irish mob, and they were fixing to pull a hit on a guy, and they were actually crossing something to do with Canada. They were in an RV or something, and the I guess it would be customs or something came onto the RV. The bathroom door was locked. Where the guy, he was a mafia guy, but they were going to kill him for whatever he did. I'm not sure. The agents got off of the particular RV. They didn't look in the bathroom. This guy was tied up in the bathroom, and this guy who wrote the book, I think they called him Red Shea. I don't remember what his first name was, but he said, I didn't want to pull a hit on this guy. He said, because this guy was he exemplified everything that the mob stood for. He could have made any kind of racket, any kind of noise, and they would have obviously rescued him, right? But he was so ingrained in his lifestyle that he just took his lick, and eventually he did get killed, from what the book said. And you don't find people like that for the most part. There's not many people.
Yeah.
I think John Gotti was another one when he was in jail. I think he was mafia to the end. He wasn't gonna change his lifestyle because that's who he was. But for the most part, these knuckleheads on the street, they bad until they not.
That's right.
So
well,
go ahead, Frankie.
I got to tell you, after this operation was over, we had all these warrants, and they, of course, I'm not going to arrest them because I'm still staying, undercover, cool, And when it was time, they arrested them all, and then, later on, months later, whenever it was time for court for these people, I had to go to court for most of them pled guilty, to be honest with you, but there was a couple that went to court, and one of them was the guy that I tell you I befriended. That was became like a friend of mine,
Right.
And I got to tell you, man, I felt so bad for him getting arrested. I mean, he was really a good guy.
Yeah.
He was just making his hustle. I hate to say it like that, but I felt bad for him when he saw me in court. That's when the first time he realized who I was. None of them knew who I was because I was going by a different name. Everything, they didn't know who the hell I was. And when I went to court, when they finally saw me and realized who I was, and when this guy saw me, he was so disappointed. He says, man, he looked at me and said, well, we were friends, man. He goes, we hung out, man. I mean, it really tore at me. I don't know. I just got to tell you, it bothered me that I felt like I let him down,
Yeah. Well, and that's the consistent story I got with these other cases that I mentioned. The friendships that look, you're making friends regardless of whether it's cops or bad guys, right? You're making friends, and when you get an attachment to somebody, an emotional friendship attachment, because you ride with them every day, there's really, you either gonna like them or you're not. And obviously you and this guy got along good, right? So now you're feeling like a traitor, right? Is that maybe?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, man, like now you the rat, but you were doing your job. But
well, I tell them, this is what I tell them, Tim. I said, look, you doing what you're doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. We just happen to meet. No hard feelings. I understand. You understand, hopefully. If I see you tonight, I'll buy you a beer. I ain't got a problem with it.
Right.
But you can't do wrong and not think that you're going to not get consequences somewhere down the road. Just so happened I was the guy that gave consequences. Yeah,
and you got a job to do, man. And but it doesn't mean that you have to feel a certain way. A lot of people don't understand cops. And when I've talked about this on previous podcasts, cops and bad guys and whatever you want to call them, criminals, cops, criminals, whatever you call them. I always tell the people on the street this, and this is one reason I got along so good with the streets. Probably got along better with the streets than I did than the policemen, right? The streets.
That's right.
The streets accept you if you real, and they know the street rules. They know all that stuff. I always told the guys, you do what you do, we do what we do, but we don't have to be adversaries. We don't have to hate each other. And a lot of people, some of these rappers and drug dealers, I'm not friends with them, but I know them. And if I see them, I'm going to speak to them. And some cops are like, they don't really understand this. But if you're a street person, you understand this. And you see these guys that you put in jail, and you put a lot of people in jail for dope. You was in a real dope game, right? But you see these guys at the doctor's office. You see them at a restaurant or whatever. And I've only had one person ever in my whole career, and I was a cop for 32 years altogether, and that was a guy that I dealt with in the parish prison that came up and tried to entice me into a fight. But my wife's like, you never get scared. I have no reason, because the streets understand this. I'm fair, just like you, fair but firm. I'm gonna do my job, and they expect you to do your job because that's what you do. That's one thing I miss. And now you didn't experience some of the things that I did later, because when I was in intelligence, after you left, we started having a huge problem with youngsters. And I told somebody one day, I said, man, I told a guy, I said, man, why y'all let these, I told a real gangster, OG, I said, why y'all let these guys disrespect y'all? Why y'all let them disrespect the police? Why don't y'all teach them? And this dude told me, and I know this guy is a legitimate shooter. I didn't have no proof, or I would have put him in jail. But I always, every time I saw him, I would mention something about somebody that I knew he killed, right? I mean, it had happened 10 years before I met him, but, you know, I would mess with him about it all the time. And we weren't friends, but we were cool on the street. And, you know, I told him, y'all need to get these people in line. And he said, we can't get them in line. They don't respect us. And that's when I knew there was a problem, because when you got people that are influencing the streets, the OGs, the original gangsters, the people that were shot callers that can't even control them, I knew we were in trouble as a society, and specifically in Baton Rouge. I dealt with 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds that had no problem shooting at all.
Right.
And that's where we're at in society now. Well, Frankie, have you run into this particular guy since you left? No, hadn't run into him.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
I mean, of course, that's in Hammond. You got to remember. I'm assuming he still lives in Hammond. I don't go there, you know. So
right.
That was a good thing about this part, you know. And you know, back when I was in Baton Rouge, when I was working undercover, you know, I'm well known in South Baton Rouge. You know, I grew up in South Baton Rouge, so I never came to South Baton Rouge. I always stayed way up north and stuff, you know. And if I felt like I was in a area where or doing a certain thing where I might run into somebody out that knew me, I would not do it or be careful. You know what I mean? You play it by where you're at and what you're doing.
I never was undercover. I was just plain clothes. So I'm in intelligence. And look, I drove a F-150 with tinted windows. It was blue. You probably know the truck. I think Brock used to drive it maybe when you were there. I don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, once they realized it was me, there's no reason. If I'm driving through South Baton Rouge, everybody knows me. They waving at my truck. I roll the windows down and talk to them. There's no reason for me to try and disguise myself. In North Baton Rouge, it was a little bit easier. And in Scotlandville, it was a little bit easier. But if I was in the South...
You know as well as I do, there's a thing called the ghetto internet.
Ghetto internet. And
I'm going to tell you, you can, as police officers, once they know a vehicle, once they know it, that's it. You know,
forever.
You can be on Gushing on 46th Street, and they over on 38th Street, they're going to know you in the area. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look, and
the
that's
word
true.
Gets out quick.
And look, the same guy I told you, the OG that I told you I messed with about shooting somebody. Like I said, I didn't have no proof that he did it and couldn't find no proof. But one day I was in patrol. I was just making a block, just cruising around, and I saw him and I stopped on him. You know, I don't want to mention his name, but I called his name. I said, "What's up, man?" And he said, "I'm just chilling, head." And I said, "Yeah, I'm just out here looking to see what's going on." He said, "Yeah." His mom was on the other side of town and let him know. He said, "Yeah, my mom said she saw you out moving, you know." So they keep up. They keep up with the movers and the shakers. They keep up with the people that they know. Yeah. They know who the real police are, and they know, right? They know about you. They know what you about. They know what you're capable of.
And they know what you're gonna put up with, what you're not gonna put up with.
Exactly. You ended it just like I wanted it to be in. That statement. Yeah, they know all that. And that's the thing, these young cops, man, and I'll say this about the young cops. I worry that they don't have people like I could watch you, I could watch Willie Vick, some of the other people, Bobby Glazier, some of the other people, Ricky Arnett. I could watch and hear stories about these people. I could watch what y'all doing and emulate the things that I thought were good, incorporate them into me, bruh stupid. Anybody who had influence on these streets, that's the people, because that's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be an influencer on these streets. I want them to know that if I'm on the block, y'all ain't gonna be doing what you're doing.
That's right.
And you are one of them guys, and there's a lot of guys out there, but I worry that these young guys don't have the ability to learn from the older people anymore. And I've been gone for 3 years, and that's my concern is for them, for the officers, man. So before we leave, is there anything else you want to add? Any statements or anything, regarding this undercover? How did it affect your life, if it did, in general, with your family and your kids? Did everything work out all right? At that moment that you came back and transitioned, was it hard to transition back?
No, actually, my wife was pretty understanding. She knew what kind of person I was. She knew what I loved and what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be undercover. I wanted to be plainclothes and narcotics when I first joined the department. That was my goal, and I was able to achieve it. So I got to tell you, man, to me, the police department today is not the same as when I was there, and it was the best years of my life. My years in narcotics, especially my first 10 years or so, it was the best years of my life. I loved it. I never missed work because I was scared I was going to miss something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't want to miss no action. I thrived on the excitement part and the danger part and the adrenaline rushes. And it was just what I did. You know, Tim, there's certain people in the department. I know you know this. You will relate to it, I guess you'd say. When you look at them, they just made to do certain things. Like there's certain guys that just made to be a motor man.
Right.
There's certain guys that they're just a homicide detective. That's just what they are. You know what I mean? And they got certain guys that do certain things that's just what they do. And that's what I was. I was just a narc, man.
Yeah.
I was a narcotics agent. I was an undercover guy, plainclothes guy, and that's what I loved. And
yeah, and you had a good career, man. Ended as a captain, and what I'll say is this: I always tell people, I'm a street guy, and I said this in the previous podcast. The number one goal that I had that I wanted to achieve at Baton Rouge City Police Department was a very simple goal. I wanted to be a uniform patrol sergeant. I was a street guy, and that's who I wanted to be. Later on, I had the experience in the intelligence division. Early on, I had some burglary experience. Didn't really care for that job. But I was a street guy, and I was okay, everything involved in the streets. And look, people now, when I left, and you probably had more hours. I know people that the last year of my career, I had well over 3,000 hours saved up. And it goes back to what you said. We didn't want to miss work. We was out here looking for the action. We wanted to have the encounters with the bad guys. We wanted to engage the worst of the worst because that's who we were. We were crime fighters.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they have as many crime fighters as they used to because I don't know that people are showing these youngsters how to do it. And it's because of a lot of different things. So I'm not blaming anybody, the political climate and everything else. But I never wanted to miss work. And let me tell you, one night, and we don't take off a lot because you're going to be that one guy that misses out on whatever happens. One night. Yeah. So this is one night I get home. I think it was like 2003. I get home. I turn on the news. Me and the wife and kids had been out eating, whatever else. I remember specifically walking in this house. I turned on the news and I found out that my shift had a shootout. And oh my God, my wife, I was fit to be tied. First of all, you want to be there for them. Second of all, you don't want to miss it. And now my whole night, which was a good night, because I remember vividly, everything that went on earlier. I don't remember what we were eating, but I remember having a nice little family outing. But my whole demeanor changed, everything. My night was ruined. I called. I had to find out the scoop, make sure all my guys was okay, see what happened to the bad guy. But guess what? You think I put in for vacation anytime soon after that? Absolutely not.
Hey, Tim, my whole career, my vacation was maxed out. My CT time was maxed out. And I got sick years ago. First off, when I went on the drop, I had 5 years left to work. When I went on the drop, I had 5,500 hours on a book.
Wow.
And when I got cancer several years back, when I went, I was at 27 years of my career when I went for my first chemo. My first chemo treatment for cancer was the first time I called in sick in 27 years.
Oh man, that's amazing.
I never called in sick in 27 years till I had to because I had to get chemo.
Right. Yeah. And look, people just ain't, the world's different. People ain't built the same. People don't have the same, ideals. We didn't want to let each other down. We had that camaraderie. We had the desire, like everything we talked about earlier. But I'm hoping that, that the cops that are here that are going to stay, just say specifically at BRPD, you got 5-10 years on the job. I hope that y'all can, at some point in time, enjoy your career as much as I did and as much as Frankie did. That's my hope. I feel like I had a whole career of doing something that I really love doing. And somebody said it ain't really work if you love it. There's a lot. Now, me and you can both attest to this. There's a whole lot of BS that we weren't happy about. But overall, you could get away from most of that BS. And it was a great career. Well, look, Frankie, I want to thank.
I work with some good people, man. I work with some good people.
Yeah, tons of good people, man. And that's the thing. One thing whenever you retire, and you know this, and I know it now, you miss the camaraderie. You miss just hanging around, BSing with people. Because cops like to pull practical jokes on each other. We like to talk smack. Yeah. We do all that stuff. But you can't replicate that when you're at home on a computer or whatever. You miss that interaction.
Yeah.
Well, retired BRPD Captain Frankie Caruso, thank you for the intriguing story. And thank you for being on Big Head on the Block.
Okay, man.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Big Head on the Block. I'm Tim Henderson, the host. I look forward to dropping another podcast soon. Please give us any comments, likes, dislikes, or any topics y'all would like to discuss. Thank you.